So without further ado, I'd like to call upon Mom Luang Dipanatta Disakun, CEO of Nai Fa Luang Foundation under the royal patronage to the stage, our panelists, Mr. Renaud Meyer, UNDP Resident Representative to Thailand, Kun Tong Chai, Thana Chan, Director of SX Expo 2022 Organizing Committee, Kun Aminta Purput Viwat, Youth Delegate, UN Youth for Climate 2021 and 2022. A big round of applause, please, and a special moderator for the session, Kun Sukhitayun. เป็นอีกหนึ่งเซสชั่นที่น่าติดตามแน่นอนค่ะถ้าพร้อมแล้วนะคะขอส่งมอบเวทีให้กับคุณสุวิชัยเชิญเลยค่ะ
So we'll say without the mask. So good afternoon. Welcome to this very important panel on the perspectives from people from various sectors on sustainable development, which has been a very prominent topic in the past few years, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And today I think four of us on the panel will try to give from our perspective what we believe to be the next step that should be taken by us, individuals, and our own organizations. We have Kun Mom Luang Dipanatta Disakun, who is the CEO of Nai Fa Luang Foundation under royal patronage. We have Kun Renaud Meyer, UNDP Resident Representative to Thailand. Kun Tong Chai, Thana Chan, who is the Director of the SX 2022 Organizing Committee. Kun Aminta Purput, who is the UN Youth for Climate 2021 and 2022. We'll start with the very basic question of the main difference that you see or similarities between the concept of sufficiency for sustainability, the relationship between sufficiency, economic philosophy, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the UN SDGs. What are the relationships? What do you think are the similarities and the differences, and how can these two concepts be incorporated together in our next step in trying to achieve the goal of sustainable development? Will you comment on that? English, I think that's what I've been told.
Okay, I think that the two concepts are mutually reinforcing. The SDG is probably the world's most recognized guidelines to move us towards solving certain sets of problems. The SEP concept of His Majesty the late King, as Dr. Sumed has mentioned, is more about, I would say, an intelligent side, or it would be a process in which us individually and us organization, corporates can use to further enhance the SDGs. We are talking about the concept that circled around issues such as self-immunity, resiliency, with some very core and key concepts of issue of morality, knowledge, and then so on and so forth, which if we can do it properly, we'll be able to enhance the effectiveness of the SDGs. And I think it's open-ended enough for all of us to interpret in our own ways, for us entity organizations to also interpret in our own ways in order to move ahead and achieve the SDG goals.
So we both support each other.
Yes, they are mutually reinforcing one another.
And in practice, when people mention the two concepts, how do they adopt it within their own organization?
I think the world today, we need to move towards creating more impact. We can't simply look at returns to companies or individuals, but we have to look at a bigger landscape. If I am to maybe point out one of the very, very critical issues, which is climate change, I think that we need to do a lot more in order to do that. And I think that the SEP, which teach us about consuming in moderation, we can then deploy that towards reducing waste. We can deploy that towards using less energy. I think it really depends on how we interpret. And then, as I said, it's open-ended enough for all of us. But we need to first understand where we want to get to and what kind of specific issues of the SDGs that we would like to address.
Mr. Meyer, from an outsider's point of view, led His Majesty the King's concept of SEP. In fact, most Thais would learn about SEP before about the UN goals, sustainable goals, development goals. But once we hear both concepts, we will try to compare them. And as the Nada said, we'll try to collaborate, try to incorporate the two concepts into our real practice here. From your viewpoint, can they be incorporated in a very effective way, seamless way?
Not only they can, but they should, I would say. Let me start from the SDGs, right, from a UN perspective. And I think sometimes we skip too quickly on the breakthrough that the SDGs are. It is the first time in humanity's history that we get a consensus from all member states on this planet around the common agenda. And I think this is extremely powerful because not only does it help countries to share the same vision in terms of the direction that they're going and they're taking on their development pathway, starting from different positions and going at different paces. But if we would all stand up and start walking, we all have our ways of doing it. But if we know where we're going, right, it is much more efficient and powerful than first sorting it out, where it is that is our ultimate direction.
As long as we know the destination,
exactly.
The journey can be different.
The journey can be different, but at some point it's very important that we keep focus on where it is that we want to go, right? And that's really the beauty of the SDGs. But our experience as a UN agencies has shown that the best way of being efficient in each of the countries where we operate is to localize the SDGs, right? To make sure that there is ownership and buy-in by the community, so that it's not something that is perceived as being forced upon, right? It's not a top-down impression. And in that way, for us here in Thailand, we're blessed because the SEP, when you unpack them, there are so many common principles and values than those that you will recognize in Agenda 2030 or in the Millennium Declaration, which is the key document out of which the SDGs are coming from. Right? So, in a way, this exercise of localizing the SDGs to a Thai context is done. And the SCP for us is very much this inspiration to align the principles and values that underpin the 17 goals and the Millennium Declaration to a Thai context. So I've been very lucky because this spares me a lot of work I don't need to explain, to advocate, and to further promote those values. I can just refer to this sufficiency economy philosophy, which is so strongly rooted in the vision that Thailand has for its development. Now, there are, of course, a lot of similarities, a few differences, nevertheless. The SDGs is a political global commitment. Right? There is accountability behind those 17 goals and a whole monitoring system. But in a way, when you interact with development actors in Thailand, they refer to the SCP very much in the same way, yes. Right? As a source of inspiration, as a motivational element. And usually, from my experience, very much first in the, I would call it the green agenda, right? The concepts of resilience, sustainability. But what is, I think, very important for us in the UN is bringing it back to a rights dimension, a human rights dimension. And if you unpack each of the SDGs, you fall back on a fundamental right that people all aspire, to have fulfilled. And one of the values of SCP is also this concept of community empowerment. Yeah. Right? It has, for it to translate from a vision to a reality, we need to empower people and communities behind those values. So if you translate this in a maybe more normative UN jargon type of approach, you would also fall back on a rights agenda, empowering the people and the community for them to fulfill their aspirations, using those principles that are underpinning the SCP.
You said it should not be top-down. There is more need for the private sector to understand the goals, or is it the other way around? That the government may have to learn from the private sector now?
Now you're putting me in a very difficult spot here. No, but it's a very good question, and I think this also has evolved.
Well,
right?
I asked you the question because you are from the UNDP. If I ask a Thai personality, it may be even more difficult to answer.
Sure. So let me try. Let me try to answer without hurting anybody's feeling in the room here,
well, you
because
can
we have a good mix.
You can have feelings as long as you make things clear.
What I would say is that I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, I would have spent much more time convincing the private sector that abiding by principles of sustainability and resilience was not going, they should not look at it from a cost perspective, right? And I think today, they are very quick to understand that unless they invest in sustainability, their profitability is going to go down. Right? So this whole exercise of explanation, I think we're past that. And now what we see is precisely what you're hinting at, and we've seen this, for example, in the commitment to net zero and the whole emission targets that initially we were hoping countries would take, but we've seen private sector be quicker, including in Thailand, right? When it comes to announcing goals and targets. Now, of course, a CEO's responsibility vis-a-vis a prime minister and a government official responsibility is two different things, and the machineries behind each are different. Right? But I think the agility of a business, a well-run business who's understood and integrated the principles of sustainability in their business model has the ability to be quick. Right? A government still has a bureaucracy, still has rules and regulations and laws that sometimes needs fixing and adjusting to those new targets and this new vision. So it might be slowed down, but it's really, one cannot work with the other. Right? We need the regulatory role of the government and the state to provide a conducive environment, and we of course need the business sector to provide the growth, but the sustainable growth. So what's very important today is to qualify the type of growth or the type of employment that we want the business sector to produce.
Thank you. Kunamita, from the young person's viewpoint, perspective, how do you see the two concepts, SDP and UN SDG?
I think that SEP is very important, and I think that sustainability is rooted at the very core of SEP. Because as a young person, I've always grown up hearing about SEP. people talk about His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej, and also how it can be implemented, as our previous speakers have said, about self-immunity, prudence, knowledge, all of those things. But the thing that I can see as to how it relates to the UN SDGs is that it promotes resilience and also accountability. The thing is that these approaches, they're very aspirational, as Mr. Renaud has said. There's something that people say a lot in a lot of these talks, which I think that is important, but something that we have to go beyond with these two things, and it's a very important thing to note, is how to make it implemented, how to make it practical, and how to make young people like me, who grow up learning about these things in school, actually be able to, after we finish school, or even as we're learning, as we're growing up, to be able to use them in our daily lives. Because I see that the similarity between these two is that, of course, they're very good, and they basically paint a picture of our world in the future that I want to happen. But we need to really make it happen, because it's not something that is easily approachable as someone growing up. As a youth, it's something that is still a little bit hard to touch. It's not that tangible yet, but I think that we need to work together. They have to be implemented together, hand in hand with different sectors, of course, so that both of these agendas can be implemented and can be achieved.
We feel that the young people of Thailand today are more aware of the issue than before, say, 5 to 10 years ago. My personal feeling is that young people of Thailand, at least today, are more concerned about the environment, are more concerned about equity, equality, equal treatment, and justice. Are all these qualities or these principles related to what we are talking about, sustainability?
I would completely agree that young people are already more aware of these issues, and they're definitely related to the SDGs and also SEP. Because the UN itself has been promoting the SDGs a lot. As you can see, even in this Sustainability Expo, there are so many youth who have come here today. I've seen a lot of students, both at the high school level or at the university level, coming to these expos. But the question now becomes with these youth is that how can they be engaged? How can they be involved, not only in the conversation, but also in the implementation, in the monitoring of these solutions? How can we, as youth, use our power, not only our voice, to help Thailand and help our world move forward into implementing the SEP or the SDGs? Because, of course, we want to be involved, and this is our future that we're talking about. We don't just want to sit and wait for other people to give us the opportunity, but we're here today because we want to learn, and we want to be able to be a part of helping making our world a better place.
Well, let me tell the government and the private sector what they should do to make it more, as you said, tangible. What does the government, what does the private sector have to do? Not only create awareness, but really making it, part of the daily life. You can touch it, you can feel it. As you said, it has to get implemented. How do they do it?
Honestly, this is a very complicated question, and I think that there are many layers to this, because there's not only one way for you to solve climate change or one way for you to solve inequality. So I think that the private sector and governments have to work together, and I think that this is a very important thing, that collaboration really is the key for you, because in order for you to solve any of these problems, to achieve sustainability, it can't just be one actor. And I think that us being here, having different perspectives is key for us to basically show that we need different people to talk about these issues as the first step. But secondly, we have to have our different ideas as to how we can solve these issues. And I think that it comes from many forms. For example, of course, education is a very good step for us to allow and give power to everyone so that they can grow up and be able to implement these solutions that they see. And also another thing is localizing these issues. As Mr. Renaud has said, if you localize the SDGs or if you focus on different communities that are experiencing different things, that way you can specifically solve the issues that people are experiencing, not just talking about on a global scale, but really tackling those specific pain points. And I think that that will really help make the issue more tangible for people to see that it's not just something, not a word that you can throw around in these conferences, but it's something that they see that relates to their daily life. But of course, it's not something that can just be done in the blink of an eye or overnight. So we really need to work together, and we are moving into that step. But the question is if we're moving fast enough or if the action is aggressive enough.
Are the government and the private sector and the young people working together enough now?
Right now, honestly, not enough. Because
Not enough. What
yes.
has to be done? What more has to be done?
Well, speaking from my own experience,
Yes.
I feel that a lot of the times I've been invited to these talks, I've been invited to give my views, but we have to go beyond that because it's not just presenting my perspective, but it's also how I can help in these solutions. Because right now, the global talk, as a lot of youth, we've been saying that we don't really just want to be here, but we also want to go beyond. We need to be involved in the implementation of the solutions, in the follow-up, so that we can see all of the actions. For example, if I give a certain recommendation today, in the future, in a few months, I would like to see how it goes on and what progress has been made. So we still need to have this connection, this partnership that has to be strengthened. That I think that this will really help with other issues as well, including like the generation gap that we see in today.
Yes. Kun Gongtai, you are the director organizing this conference. Very impressive, huge, big, the biggest so far. I've been to the first and the second one. This one is really big. Now, from your perspective, is this kind of conference the answer to the question that we have raised so far?
I would say it's part of the answer, but it's not the answer, right? I think the venue like this is where people actually meet and connect, share their experiences, share their knowledge, but it's only just a few days, right? So I think what we would like to happen is that people talk to each other, make connection, learn from each other, and actually continue to converse and continue to act together, right? I think beyond this expo itself, we have so many different initiatives that we are doing with a lot of our partner organizations. Things that Kun Kamana mentioned earlier about Thailand Supply Chain Network, that we work with so many suppliers of Thai beverage as well as our partners to actually do things together, right? Collaborate on projects. We also do things with startups and youth, right? To really help them, groom them to understand and also to be able to execute these actions, right? So it's not about talks, and I think we see a lot of talks, but we also need to see actions. And I was told to actually continue this effort, not only during this week, but it should be something that we continue to have the project together with our partners going through the year into the next year. And each year we'll come back to actually see how things have been done. So it's all about action. It's the decade of action. Talk is only part of it. We need to talk. We need to communicate in order to collaborate, but it's not enough.
This event is a great collaboration of the private sector, as I can see. Do you find that the government part is also involved in it? And how do you bring the government in? And also the young people and the other sectors of society?
I think the thing that is quite different from with our expo compared to some other expos is that we put the consumer in the center. As Kutamana mentioned in his opening speech, we call this concept B to C to B. Right? The first B is about the organizations and the business organizations that actually know and realize the importance of sustainability. Right? These are the leaders. Right? But it's not enough. We need to reach out to consumers, and that's why C is in the middle. Why do we need to reach out to consumers? Because sometimes when we do take initiatives on sustainability, there is some cost to it, right? And unless the consumers actually understand and value these initiatives, they would not care and they would not give the value to the products and the services that are good to the society and the environment. And that's why we need to focus on the consumer as a center. And then we hope that by having the consumers with us, we can bring along other businesses, right, and other organizations that may not right now realize yet the importance of sustainability. So as a whole, we form the ecosystem that is larger. And that's why this expo does not only have talks. We have playgrounds downstairs to attract elementary school kids, right, to understand what they can do. So it's not only about learning, but what they can do themselves to actually contribute to better environment. We have the marketplace for the consumer who may be interested about innovation that are good for the society and for the environment. And we also have the food festival because we believe that food is very close to everyone. Everyone has to eat, right? And food actually creates a lot of waste, right? So if we can manage the food from the raw material all the way to the waste properly, we can actually help the world, and we want to use that as a tool to communicate to everyone that they themselves, everyone can actually act, right, just by consuming responsibly. I think that's one goal, right, in UN SDG about responsible consumption. So to your question actually about whether we can bring the government with us, yes, we actually have a lot of government organizations with us today in the expo, right? So in SWTC, or OPWTC, a lot of organizations, including Ministry of Interior, right, are here with us because in fact everyone had been doing a lot of work on this topic. So we hope that the venue like this can be the place where everyone can bring their work on the same topic to show to everyone else and share and collaborate.
Thank you. Kun Dipanada, the Meffa Long Foundation has been actively involved in the SDP philosophy and also in SDG as well. What are some of the good stories you will tell us? And what are some of the challenges? What still has to be done?
I think that in the last couple of years, we put climate issue as one of the most important agenda of the foundation because we believe that climate issue basically trickle down to a lot of other problems that we have seen, not only in Thailand but also globally. What we're trying to do now is trying to redefine the way we do businesses in a way that reduce our footprint in terms of carbon footprint, reduce usage of raw material, reduce usage of energy. So we have moved more towards that kind of business that is more environmental friendly, that are greener. At the same time, we're trying to enhance our impact towards communities. Again, how can we use our business of Doitum or the foundation as a platform to grow communities, to strengthen communities. Some of the example would be in 2000 and started in 2012, 2013, Doitum moved more towards addressing the issue of waste. And in 2018, we became zero waste to landfill for the entire project. But that is not enough. So we started in 2019, declared that by 2024, we as a Doitum community, the entire 150 square kilometers spanning across 27 villages will become zero waste to landfill. And we are very happy to say that in 2023, next year, as an entire area will become zero waste to landfill. Of that, we would only burn about 15% of the waste, which means that 85% of the waste would be put back to the recycle process. We make some initiative towards reducing our energy footprint. We are now at 5% renewable. Our goal the next year is to move to 8% renewable. We're now also recycling our water. We're at 6% at the moment. Our goal is to move to 9%. And we are working now with the newly established Community Forestry Act. We're now moving and working directly with corporates in terms of trying to utilize the needs for carbon credits in enhancing the community. As you are very, very aware that a lot of the problem of deforestation in Thailand nowadays is because of slash and burn farming, is because of monoculture farming, and the income itself is not that big when we look at it in terms of revenue per ride. So what we have done is we have changed and we have transformed farmers from earning income through cultivation, through shifting cultivation, through deforestation, to protecting the forest through this Community Forestry Act. And now we're growing. Hopefully we'll be able to get to 200,000 rai by the end of next year. At the same time, we are using the Doidunas platform to also enhance strength of the community. We got a lot of support from different companies in terms of doing handicraft products, gift sets, and things. And then we send our team to work directly with communities, invest in basic processing equipment. And
do you get good cooperation from the local communities?
We have a lot of communities that are lining up to work with us, and we're now engaging corporate sectors that wanted to create more impact through the ESG, THSI declaration, and so on to ensure that their businesses actually contribute towards greener Thailand or enhance strengthen communities and so on. I think this is the direction that the foundation wanted to move forward. And we also believe that we have a lot of knowledge in terms of sustainable development, having done this for the last 50 years, that we're now ready to work with different corporates, different companies to try to enhance their goals, their visions of creating more sustainable company, more sustainable entities. We have a lot of the companies that we are working with that are here today at this event as well.
What are some of the challenges you have yet to overcome?
I think the challenges is, as Ian has said, I think it's the speed, the rate of acceptance. That I think that we are a bit slow. If we're looking at the issue of the ice melting, we're still doing more harm than we're doing good. And I think that now is the time where a lot of corporate companies are in discussions within itself and among other in terms of how to land on first, like the first step in order to make the second and the third step. And I think this will take a little bit of time. But again, I think that the role now is to disseminate knowledge to different companies and to really share with them that sustainable development practices is not difficult. It just takes a little bit of realignment, and I think we need to rewire the way we think, that it cannot be about profit first, but it has to be about planet first, because without the planet there will be no profits.
So it's still work in progress.
Yes.
Renaud, as UN representative here and with your experience in Thailand, tell us frankly the challenges that Thailand has been facing and have yet to overcome. I don't be great time. You know the word.
I like when you say frankly, because I don't think I can do anything else but to be frank. the challenge that Thailand is facing is the same challenge that every single country in the world is facing, is walk the talk.
So we are not unique.
You're not unique. Sorry to disappoint, but you're not. It's really, the challenge is really to walk the talk. So many examples around us. Countries all gather in Glasgow and try to save the Paris Agreement and show commitment to the targets, and we applaud because most of the countries, if not all, now have this 2050, 2065. But what is the reality? The reality is that we spend so much more money on fuel subsidies than on investment in the renewable sector. That's a reality. Right? So there's a political side of statements and good declarations that are encouraging and, as we heard, needed. But as long as it doesn't translate in all kinds of levels into very concrete policy decisions that will disrupt, and I'm grateful for Dr. Sumit's mention of that word, disruption, because we just have to accept, there's no other option, that our lives, the way we know it, is disrupted, and therefore there's no other solution but to disrupt the way we live. And that's the very, very difficult part. Because yes, we can look at government, businesses as entities, but when we bring it to ourselves as individuals, this is where the difference is going to be made. Food waste. Buffet in the tourism industry in the southern beaches of Thailand. Abominable. Right? And so we hear wonderful experiences like going home. Right? It's a question of upscaling this and making this the example to follow. And there's no reason. So if the community can make it, right, then everybody can make it. But we have to come to grip with the fact that we will not be able to consume the same way. We have to really, of course, hope that technology, innovation, will help us find, and I think it's partly very true in the production side. On the consumption side, it just won't happen. We have to accept as individuals on this planet that we all have not only a responsibility in the situation that is happening to us, but also in the solutions. So every action counts. And it's, I know, very understandable from a humane perspective that, when we open the news in the morning, it's so overwhelming with negative information, right? We are about to come out, knock on wood, I hope it's wood, of COVID-19, right? And then we have a conflict in Ukraine. Everybody initially thinks, it's not going to affect us. But then, we go to the grocery store and we realize inflation is happening, and there's a direct link between the two. Right? So the whole world, the whole supply chain is affected by one conflict. And it feels like we're just going from one crisis to another. So of course it is overwhelming, and it's just easy and maybe too comfortable to say, what is my personal action going to change? Well, it will. And it has to, because I'm sorry to say that, don't see any other way for us. And speed is absolutely critical, because right now we're going to hit the wall very, very quickly. And as we've said, as the UN, this is about our own existence, our survival on this planet. Every year we have seen this moment, right, when our production of the way that natural resources are being regenerated, right, and how we need to use them for our production, that cutoff date goes up and up and up. It comes closer and closer to January, right? So very soon we'll be in a situation where we're just, borrowing. And the same is true in many ways, that we consume and overconsume, and this whole, fantasy of having 56 credit cards and go into -15 shopping malls on the weekend to feel good and to compensate for the hard work we've done. This model of consumption, of quantitative versus qualitative, it has to be disrupted.
So your message is time is running out. We are living on borrowed time, right? What about the young person like Untitled how do you react to his very
Passionate.
passionate?
It's
passionate
extremely encouraging.
Yes.
Right?
Wow,
It's extremely
wow.
encouraging.
Your generation is going to pass this word on to Amita's generation. So what do you say to that?
Sorry. I say sorry to Gunaim and all our fellow
I like Amita's reaction to
citizens.
that. What's your reaction, Amita?
My reaction is to basically support that because it's undeniable that time really is running out and we can't wait any longer. But I think another challenge, if I may, that I would like to raise is that of disparity because I think that a lot of people oftentimes we might overlook this issue because disparity that I'm talking about, especially in terms of youth, is not only in terms of socio-economic factors, but also the ability for us to be engaged, the ability for us to be here on this stage or to come to these expos. The thing is, a lot of youth really want to be involved in these issues. We are seeing that this is the decade of action. We really need to be involved. But the thing is, some people in different contexts don't have the ability to do so, whether it be because of their social standing or because of the lack of opportunities. And I think that we need to recognize as people here in this room that different words mean different things in different contexts to different people. For example, me being here as a youth, I'm skipping my final exams for this, but in other experiences for other youth, they cannot even imagine, even on a global scale, to strike or go to Fridays for Future climate protests because they don't even have access to education in the first place. These people in countries where they aren't even able to access these basic human rights don't have the privilege to think of fighting for our future because they're still fighting for the present today. They can't worry about what is going to happen in the future because they don't even know if they're going to have something to eat at the end of the day. And I think that this is something that I really want all of us to recognize, that it's not only just working for the future, but it's also working for the present to solve the issues that we're seeing here today. And it's oftentimes things that we don't really think about because we're already in a very privileged place, if I can say that. And I think that this is something that I would like to raise more awareness to everyone who's standing here.
So we have to work. We have to work on the present before we talk about the future, because you don't see the present as a very good present, right?
Well, yes, I think that we have to recognize like there's a gray area between being like pessimistic, saying that the present is not good, but also recognizing like how much progress has been made, how much we've done already in advancing like human rights and also different inequality issues. Of course, it's not perfect, but still we're moving forward to a better world.
Thank you. Kun Tongchai, you have the last word here. We have a few minutes left. What is your message, Kun Tongchai, to the audience here about what we are trying to do on sustainability?
I'd say I believe in the humankind. I believe that if we really work on it, we can face any challenge, we can adapt to anything, but we have to work on it. And I think the key word is actually about continuity, right? We can't just have collaboration when we want to, right? We need to continue and act in a continuous way and make progress and despite all the challenges and the different priorities. Right, we have seen COVID as one disruption, right? One challenge that we had to perhaps change our priorities for a while. But now that it's kind of somewhat under control, we have to continue and come back, right? So I do believe in humankind.
Well, on that note, I'd like to bring this session to a conclusion. Please give a big hand to our great panelists. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen. A big round of applause, please. For our panelists, หม่อมหลวง ปนัดดา ดิษกุล Mr. Renaud Meyer คุณต้องใจ ธนชานันท์ คุณอมินตา เพิ่มพูนวิวัฒน์ and also our moderator, Kun Sunitay. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives with us on sustainable development, and we're very certain with collective joint efforts we can actually help push the agenda forward. Sustainability Expo is perhaps one important driver. It's an impactful platform on sustainability in the region, and it can help